This heel stops your foot from sliding through a stirrup. This narrow toe finds one in the dark. This sole lets you slip free if you fall. This boot isn't decoration. It was built to keep you alive. Today on Chasing Beauty, we're looking at the cowboy boot. The cowboy boot doesn't actually start with cowboys. It has two primary components. First are vaqueros, Mexican horsemen who'd been working cattle across the American Southwest for 300 years, before the first American cowboy ever got on a horse. The vaqueros inherited their riding traditions from Spanish conquistadors and colonials, and those Spanish riding boots already had the basic architecture: a tall shaft, a defined heel, and a narrower toe. Horseback cultures across the world had been refining this shape for centuries. But there was another major influence on the cowboy boot. When cattle drives started in 1867, the frontier was full of ex-soldiers, still wearing their Civil War cavalry boots. These were tall with a heel and built from the same Wellington and Hessian patterns that the European horsemen had been riding in for generations. And the logic of the design was always the same. Your boot has to work with the stirrup, or the stirrup will kill you. The problem is a stirrup is just a ring of wood or leather hanging from a strap. Your foot goes in and the ball of your foot rests on the bar at the bottom. That's what gives you leverage, to stand, to steer, and to absorb the impact of the horse's movements. But if your foot slides too far through, past the ball and becomes wedged, you can be trapped. And then if the horse throws you, you don't fall cleanly. You end up hanging off the horse and getting dragged across whatever that ground is made up of: rocks, fence posts, or you could get trampled by another horse. Getting dragged was one of the most common ways to die on a cattle drive. So the boot was built around a core principle: get in fast, stay in firm, and get out clean. So the slimmer toe isn't for style. When you're mounting a horse that may already be moving, maybe you're in the dark, the narrower toe finds the stirrup opening in one motion and allows it to slide in. The heel is close to 2 inches and angled forward under the arch, called a Cuban heel. Once your foot is in the stirrup, the heel catches the bottom bar and stops your foot from sliding through any further. It's like a lock. You'll notice on cowboy boots that the sole is smooth leather. It sounds like a flaw, but it's actually one of the most important mechanisms of the boot. If you're coming off of a horse, grip is the last thing you want on your foot. The smooth sole allows you to slide out of the stirrup cleanly. Now what about the tall shaft? A cowboy on a cattle drive spent 12 to 15 hours a day on horseback, pushing through brush, mesquite, cactus, and tall grass. Rattlesnakes sat coiled at ground level. A lariat whipping around a calf could saw through exposed skin in a second. The shaft was armor from the knee down, and the pull tabs on top, the mule ears. You grab both tabs, shove your foot in, and pull. Laces would catch on brush, on rope, or stirrup hardware. A cowboy's boot is deliberately smooth, so there's nothing to snag on anything. So how did we actually get the cowboy boots of today? After the Civil War ended in 1865, everything changed fast. Millions of longhorn cattle were roaming wild across Texas, and the railroads hadn't reached them yet. The only way to get beef to market was to walk it, 500, 800, 1,000 miles north to the railroads in Kansas, Abilene, or Wichita. That's the famous cattle drive. Thousands of men signed on: formerly enslaved black men, Mexican vaqueros, drifters, teenagers, anyone looking for something to do. The cowboy boot didn't start off as one recognizable silhouette. In the 1870s and 80s, these boots were built one at a time by hand in small shops for individual cowboy customers. In 1879, a kid named H.J. Justin borrowed $35 from a barber in Spanish Fort, Texas, a town right on the Chisholm Trail, and started making boots for cowboys passing through. They'd get measured on the way north, drive their cattle to Kansas, and pick up their finished boots on the way home. In 1883, two brothers from Sicily, Salvatore and Joseph Lucchese, opened a shop near Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio, Texas. They made boots for cavalry officers. Their father had been a shoemaker in Palermo. No one independently dreamed the boot up. The cowboys told them what they needed, and the bootmakers figured out how to build it. The Great Cattle Drives ran from roughly 1867 to 1886. ended by barbed wire, railroad expansion, and a series of brutal winters. A little over 2 decades. The boot, though, outlived everything. But you might still be sitting there wondering, pondering on one thing. Something so deeply critical to the visual identity of the cowboy boot. The stitching, the crazy patterns, and the craftsman intricacies. None of that keeps you safe in a stirrup. So what is it doing there? Well, the stitching actually started out straight. Rows of thread pulled tight through the leather to keep the shaft from sagging around your leg. It was purely functional. Then at some point, one day, a bootmaker in a small shop decided that functional stitching could look beautiful too. That snowballed into the elaborate work we have on boots today, one of the defining features of the style. Cowboy boots started as a tool for surviving the Southwest and became one of the icons of the American myth. It's a nice reminder that sometimes the best designs come from just trying to get a hard job done.